To God be the glory. To God be the glory. Come on, to God be the glory. Long live the spirit of the Million Man March. Long live the spirit of the Million Man March. Long live the spirit of the Million Man March. Come on, black man. Give the black man a hand here in the Salem United Methodist, as well as in the Dempsey Center. Praise be to Allah. All praises be to Allah. We thank each of you. Can be seated. Each brother that stood honored every woman that is here, because we know we cannot be here without her. So Allah says in the Quran, reverence the womb that bore you. Without any further delay, here we have the man of God, the voice of God, in the presence of God, to recognize God in you, our brother, our friend, our servant, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Let's receive him all over the world. Praise be to Allah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. God is the greatest. God is the greatest. Receive the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, we give Him praise and thanks for His mercy and His goodness to the human family. God's mercy and His goodness is shown to us in many ways, but the best of God's mercies is when He sends into the world His prophets and messengers to bring divine revelation and guidance to the people who have lost their way, and in losing their way, they lose the favor of God. We thank Him for Moses and the Torah. We thank Him for Jesus and the gospel. We thank Him for Muhammad and the Quran. Peace be upon these worthy servants of Allah. I am a student of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and as his student, I could never thank Allah enough for His intervention in our affairs, raising this man up to lead, teach, and guide us into that process that would make us what we were in the beginning, the righteous, the people of God, the original people of our planet. I thank Allah for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and I greet all of you with the greeting words of peace. We say it in the Arabic language, Assalamu alaikum. To our dear pastor, who has honored us by allowing us the privilege of speaking from this great pulpit in this great house of worship. To Minister Kevin, to the believers of Mosque number 7, and to the ambassadors and pastors and civic leaders and the common people who are present. Words cannot describe how much joy is in my heart to be home again in the great city of New York, in Harlem, the capital of Black America. To all those who are watching by satellite throughout America and throughout the globe, this is the 7th anniversary of one of the greatest, most historic moments in the history of our struggle in America, the Million Man March, which God used me to call for 7 years ago. I want to thank Minister Benjamin, known as Minister Benjamin Chavis then, but Minister Benjamin Muhammad. The Million Man March would not have been as successful as it was without Minister Benjamin, and we thank you for your continued good work in the cause of the rise of our people, and to all of you who really made it happen, because without New York, Detroit, Chicago, LA, Atlanta, and all of the little towns and cities that we came from to make that historic demonstration, you all made the Million Man March what it was, and the sisters who remained at home and cheered us on and received us on our return like we were heroes of some sort. We really affected America on that day, and we affected the whole world. And everywhere that I went after the Million Man March, as I toured the world in your name, the peoples of the world saw you as their hope. No one really can understand, unless you travel, the effect, the horrendous effect of America's foreign policy on third world countries and people. And what they saw in you, in me, and in us was the hope that America could be changed from within, because there is no power on the outside that can change the horror of what comes from Washington, but only those of us on the inside can affect this nation. And whether you want to believe it or not, God allowed them to bring us into slavery. God allowed us to suffer, as the scripture says. He didn't try us with silver and gold, but he tried us in the furnace of affliction. And this affliction has made us a greater people than we could have ever been if we had stayed at home in Africa. Because the racist, white supremacist mentality of our tormentors kept raising the bar for us. And every time we jumped over the bar that they raised, they kept raising it higher and higher and higher, so that whenever we made it, we knew we had to jump high. And he raised the bar so high that he himself couldn't jump over it. But baby, we just beginning to jump. The nation needs the soul of its nation. And the soul of this nation are those who have suffered and paid a price to make America what America is. So on this, the 7th anniversary of the Million Man March, the 40th anniversary of the Cuban Missile Crisis, we are approaching a tremendous crisis that will be initiated by the present administration, but it will bring to the world a war that the prophets dreaded, a war that ultimately would end all wars, the war that is called Armageddon. I want to talk to you tonight in a very sober, reasoned way and appeal to your intelligence. Our topic is the consequences of war and the fruit of peace. 17 years ago, in a vision-like experience that I had during the height of this cry that I was this vicious anti-Semite, and as I appeared in Los Angeles, California, and 19,000 people came out to hear what we had to say, and at Madison Square Garden, where the garden was filled to capacity, the Felt Forum was filled, every aisle was filled, and thousands were in the streets. And they were chanting, "Who do we want? Farrakhan. How do you want him? Dead. Who do you want? Farrakhan. How do you want him? Dead." With that backdrop of real hatred for me in particular and the Nation of Islam in general, I went to Mexico and I tried to think my way through this negative chapter in my life that started with my support of the Reverend Jesse Jackson as he desired to be the nominee of the Democratic Party for the presidency of the United States of America. I never was involved in politics, but I got in it because I saw Jesse Jackson as the most important man of that hour, because I saw what Reverend Jackson could do and did do to free the minds of our children, that we could compete with the wisest of them and beat them in debate and argument, so that black children watching the Reverend Jackson argue the points would be able to say, I not only can be a great basketball player, football player, now tennis player, golf champion, but I also can rule the nation where my fathers were sold as slaves. I will always be grateful. I will always be grateful to the Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson for that moment and what he did to free the minds of our children. But it cost me a lot to defend the Reverend, because I didn't know what I was getting into. And when I stood up, because that's the way I was trained by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he always taught us that we are men.
That's right.
And that we should fear no one but God.
That's right. Yes, sir.
And so it was natural for me.
Yes,
It was natural for me that when I was challenged by members of the Jewish community I was not about to back down. And so I was called the new Black Hitler and a lot of ugly names. And from that day to this, I have been the most evil spoken of black man in the United States of America. But I thank them. And I thank the media. My teacher told me once, he said, brother, there once was a donkey and he fell in a ditch. And everybody that came by took up a stone and threw it at the donkey. And they threw so many stones till they filled up the ditch and the donkey walked out. So he said, remember, brother, every knock is a boost. So I thank the media, I thank the members of the Jewish community who have made me known all over the world, and I thank you for that. Of course, you made me known in an ugly way, but that's all right. There's a verse in the Holy Quran that says, I betake myself to the mud. Because when you put mud on your skin and it dries and you do that, all the impurities come off of you. So you've thrown a lot of mud on Farrakhan, but it's okay. Because I've become better and stronger and ready to face whatever by telling the truth in this most trying hour. Now, this hour is going to manifest us as who and what we really are. Many of us look in the mirror and we say, I am what I am. And we think, and it's natural to think the best of ourselves. But you never know who you are until you've been tried. And every trial will show you and me our weakness and our strength. So that when our weakness is shown up, we can go and get it together and make ourselves strong and prepared for the next trial. Because life is full of them. And the weak cannot survive. Life is for the strong. Freedom is for the strong. The weak can get strong because the source of strength is God. And if the weak tie into the source of strength, then there is no weakness. So this hour will be an hour of testing. No one in their right mind wants to be opposite the President of the United States of America. He's the most powerful, it appears, human being on our planet, our duly selected president. But he is the head of the house. And the Quran and the Bible teach us to respect those in authority over us, whether they respect us or not. Because the idea of God is always to have an ordered society. And you cannot have an ordered home, an ordered school, an ordered church, or an ordered community if there is no respect for law and respect for authority. The only time we are to rebel against authority, even if it is our own mother, is if our mother asks us to associate a partner with God. and to worship that which is unworthy of worship, then we are to disobey mother, but still with respect. So if we can disobey our own mother who brought us into the world, then we can disobey authority when authority asks us to do that which is against the principle of our faith. Now, the scripture says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Well, then, if the peacemakers are blessed, then damned are the warmongers. For they not only shall be called, but they are the children of Satan. And the sad thing about this satanic fella is that he is so artful as a deceiver. He uses language that sounds straight but is crooked as a snake. He says the right words, but if you watch his actions, his words are meant to deceive. And the scripture says that the serpent would deceive the whole world. He starts off in the Genesis of the Bible as a serpent. He's also called a serpent in the Quran. But in the Genesis of the Bible as a serpent, but in the Revelation, he's a dragon. He's grown so huge in power. One of the signs of the end of the world is as it was in the time of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, that it said God took out of him the heart of a human being and gave him the heart of a beast. And in the Bible, in the book of Revelations, it talks about the beast.
Yes.
Mm. And it talked about how powerful the beast was and the words of blasphemy that were in his mouth.
Yes. Go ahead. Yes. Teach.
And it talks about how powerful he was that nobody could do business except they had a mark given by the beast. And the people were marked in their forehead and in their hands with the mark of the beast. And in the book of Revelations it said, "Here is wisdom. Count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. 666." So we're not talking about an actual four-legged beast, but we're talking about a man, a human being whose heart is not of flesh, but is the heart of a beast. And when a human has been labeled as a beast, that means that they tear the flesh of others. They stalk their prey and pounce upon the weak and devour them. In that context, let us look at what is happening in our nation. I use the possessive pronoun our because we claim it. It is ours. We paid a price for it. It is ours. And we are tired of letting sick minds run the house. So God wants to wake up the original man and give him back his original mind, that he may become a master in the land where he was once sold as a slave. This is what the fight is all about. Keep the black man ignorant. Keep him dancing. Keep him partying. Keep his fine woman naked, so that his mind will always be below his navel, and his mind will be filled with trash and foolishness, to allow a weak and a wicked man to rule the earth, when you should be awakening and rising up to assume your rightful place. After September the 11th, this was a different country. And since 9/11, we live in a different world. Why would human beings be so filled with hatred that they would commandeer an airplane with innocent people on that plane and drive that plane into a building to bring it down and make a statement? Look at those magnificent twin towers. Look at the architectural genius and the economic power that put them up. Look at what it represented. It represented the economic might of a nation, and it represented the architectural genius of a nation. And then a plane flew into the South Tower and then the Pentagon and was on its way somewhere in Washington, D.C., either the White House or the Capitol. I watched those events, as you probably did, but I was horrified at what I was looking at when I saw living beings jumping from high stories, getting away from the fire. They jumped into the air to their death, some of them holding hands. When I thought of the firemen and the policemen and the emergency medical people who rush to things like that to save life and ended up losing their lives, and I watched the horror of that, I could not move from my television screen. And it took me days before I could organize my thoughts to say something. I was literally dumbstruck. And as I was driving in my car, the hair on my arm began to stand up because God was telling me something to say. And when I said it on the 16th of September, pardon me, others told me it was the most intelligent word that they had heard from any who had spoken.
Come on. We believe it.
No, I'm not saying that for any aggrandizement of myself, but I am a guided man.
Yes. Yes, sir.
And the way I am guided, I know from God what is in the president's mind.
Yes. Listen to this.
Now, you can take it or leave it. But I have to tell you.
Yes, sir.
I have to tell you. When I went down into Mexico, I had a vision-like experience that I made public, and some mocked me and laughed at me, and some reporters even said, well, a man that talks like that can't even be considered rational or sane. But I'm going to say it again.
Come on.
I'm very rational.
That's right.
And I'm very sane.
Yes, sir. 100%.
But I had an experience.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's all I can tell you is my experience.
That's right.
I was in Mexico, and in a vision-like experience, I thought it was a vision, I climbed a mountain in a village called Tepoztlan. And on the top of this mountain that I had climbed many times, there is a temple that was for Quetzalcoatl, the Mesoamerican messianic figure. And this night, as I was climbing this mountain with some of my friends, as I got to the top of it, one of these little planes, like a wheel, they call it unidentified flying objects that have already been identified. It's that same wheel that you read about in the book of Ezekiel. 595 years before Jesus, Ezekiel saw a wheel in the middle of the air. That wheel is real now. It was a vision then, but it's real now. I want you to hear me tonight. And this will probably be the last time that I will have a chance to say to the president what I want to say to him, because I know he'll get this message. A wheel-like object came off to the side of the mountain, and a voice from it spoke to me. I was frightened, and I wanted them to come with me to the wheel, and the voice said, not them, just you. And as I came closer to the wheel, it had three prongs, like it was going to come over the mountain and land, but it never came over the mountain. I was told to relax, and a beam of light came out of that wheel, and that light was so thick that it drew me up into the wheel on this beam of light. I sat beside the pilot, but I could not see him. And I knew he was taking me to that great wheel that I talked about in a Washington Post editorial board meeting, when Ben Bradley at the end of the meeting asked me, what about this wheel business? And I reached in my bag and I talked about President Jimmy Carter, who saw these wheels and said when he became president, he would open it up. But when he became president, that is above top secret. You don't talk about the wheel. I told them that on the front page of the Washington Post, a major in the Japanese Air Force was flying a 747 over the Bering Straits and clocked it for an hour and a half and gave the measurements of it. He said it was like two of the largest aircraft carriers together. And the largest aircraft carriers 440 yards, and two of them is a half a mile. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had taught me that it's a half a mile by a half a mile. Now listen, on the front page of the Washington Post, this man measured and made a picture of the relationship of the 747 to that giant wheel. And it was, the 747 was like a speck. Well, I was taken to that wheel. The pilot knew that I was afraid, so he maneuvered his craft so that I wouldn't see it. And then he moved into a bay-like. I don't take time to describe that part of it. But he came and opened the door for me and ushered me into a room. I still haven't seen him. And in that room, there was a speaker in the center of the room, and it was like a room that you could peel back the, it's like an accordion, but it's made out of metal, like something you have on your fire place that is fanned out like this. Well, that whole room was like that, so that if you roll the fan back, you could see a much larger room. But suffice it to say that in the center of that was a speaker. And I heard the voice of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now listen to me carefully. I know my leader's voice, and I know we had a funeral, and I know the world thinks he's dead. But I know that he spoke to me. Before he spoke, a scroll had rolled down in front of me with cursive writing on it. And as I got closer to read the scroll in English, he spoke. I asked him a question very personal about my personal life, and he dismissed it. I didn't bring you up here for that. This is telepathic. Now, I don't hear his voice then, but it's like telepathic. I didn't bring you up here for that. And he gave me something quick that answered that. And then he said these words, quote, "The president has met with his joint chiefs of staff to plan a war." Listen, he said, "I want you to hold a press conference and make his plans known and tell them that you got it from me, Elijah Muhammad, on the wheel. You have one more thing to do," he said, "and then you can come again to the wheel, and I will allow you to see me face to face." And then he dismissed me. I went to the door. The man, whoever the pilot was, he opened the door to the craft, let me in, went around, and that craft shot out of that mother plane and then went up to a terrific height and turned so I could look down on it. It is like a city in the sky. It's in your Bible. It's called the New Jerusalem. I saw it come down, it says, from heaven, like a bride adorned, huh?
Yes, sir.
It's a city, but in that city is a whole new wisdom, a whole new life, and that life will come to this planet. It has two dispositions: one to destroy America, and the other to plant new life in America, and new life on our planet that comes directly from God. Now, this is my experience, not yours. You can believe me or let it alone. Now, let me tell you the truth of that experience.
Come on, Dennis. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Make us think. Yes. Come on. Come on.
I woke up the next morning. I didn't remember anything. That was the morning of the 18th of September, 1985. On the morning of the 19th, at about 8:10 in the morning, I was getting up late to make my prayers, and as I stood up to pray, the whole room began to shake. It was that great earthquake that affected Mexico City on September the 19th, 1985. I left the village of Tepoztlan and went to Mother Tinetta's home, as she lives in Mexico. And as I was going up the stairs, pardon me, to her kitchen, the whole thing came back to me, and I repeated it to my wife and to Mother Tinetta. Now, I told it to some that are around me, and some said, look, Farrakhan, if I were you, I wouldn't mention that, because people would think that you kind of lost it, you know what I'm saying? And so I embarked on a world tour in December of 1985. I went to the Virgin Islands, to Jamaica, to Barbados, and I spent New Year's of 1986 in Barbados, and then I flew to Panama. The influence of members of the Jewish community was so strong that I had reservations in a hotel, but when I showed up and it was Farrakhan, I couldn't sleep in that one. And I couldn't sleep in the second best hotel. But in the third best, I decided I wouldn't use my name, but when they found out that it was I, they wanted me to leave. But I was already in and I was staying. I left there and I went to a beautiful little country called Belize. And in Belize, Ronald Reagan came over the television with what is called an executive order, ordering that all American citizens should not travel to or do business with Libya. And I wondered, is this what I was told? He's going to make war, but I wasn't told who he was going to make war with or why. But he had met with the Joint Chiefs of Staff to do this. I came back to the United States, and Kwame Ture, whom you know, some of you, as Stokely Carmichael, one of our great thinkers, came to me and he said, Farrakhan, we want to hold a press conference in Washington, hands off Libya. Would you be the spokesperson? There'll be about 15 groups. And I said, yes, I would. And I flew to Washington, D.C., and at the Howard University Inn, Kwame Ture came to the room, and I laid out for him the speech that I was going to make at the press club in Washington, and he approved it. And while I was speaking at the press club, there was a line of television cameras. And I said, I wonder, could this be it? Because I was talking about Libya, hands off Libya, but I didn't say I got it from Elijah Muhammad on the wheel, because the circumstance hadn't crystallized for me. While I was in Ghana, it crystallized for me that it was Libya that America had planned to go to war with. Libya is a tiny Muslim nation, but the leader of that nation is one that has ruffled the feathers of the Western governments of the world, Muammar Gaddafi. So I sent my family back to the United States, and only those who could travel with me without paying a price, I kept them with me, and I got on a jet, an Aeroflot jet, and I flew to Libya. When I was in Libya, that next day, all the members of the government, I mean the top people, except Brother Gaddafi, came to my room, and I explained to them my experience, and I told them they're going to bomb your communication center, your airport, your water project. The next day, 86 nations were there for a conference, and I spoke, and I talked to Secretary of State Schultz, and I begged him not to do this. But while I was in Libya, an American aircraft carrier, one of its most modern, was in the Gulf of Sirte, or Sidra as they call it, and an American plane came over the airspace of Libya and was shot down. I knew the war was on, but I was there. Now, how to get out? All of a sudden, after the plane got shot down, there was a lull in the action. So I and my party got on a flight and we went to Saudi Arabia. While I was in Saudi Arabia, the bombs fell on Tripoli, Benghazi, and where they have their communication is where Brother Gaddafi lives. And they had accurate information as to what room the brother was in. And when he left that room, the bomb hit. And if he had stayed in that room, he would have died with his little daughter, and over 100 or more lives were lost in the most expensive assassination attempt in the history of the world. Now, why am I saying this? I want to show you something. And to Muslims, you know, I don't say that there's nothing special about me. All I can tell you is my experience. And I know that what I was told was accurate, because the very next year, 1987, I'm on an airplane flying, and I pick up the New York Times magazine section. And in it, it said, America tried to planned a war with Libya. And I ran to the page and look at the words. It said in early September, President Ronald Reagan met with the Joint Chiefs of Staff to plan a war against Libya. Now, my heart is comforted because my experience was real. But there was a reason why he didn't tell me President Ronald Reagan. He said the president. Because what I was to learn and understand, that I think I fully understand now, was that every president, from Ronald Reagan to George W. Bush, has had some problem with the Muslim world. Now listen to me. Just listen. Nixon said, the real enemy of democracy is not communism. It is fundamentalist Islam. He said the Third World War has already begun and we are losing it. What do you mean, Nixon? See, Nixon was the type of president, brilliant, but he saw the Constitution as a stumbling block, and he had a secret government. Are you listening?
Yes, sir.
A secret government. That was operating. Johnson, his predecessor, knew how to manipulate Congress. So a lie was told to get more soldiers into Vietnam. The Tonkin Gulf resolution was passed through Congress, but it was based on a lie, and the Congress signed that resolution and gave the president the power that he was looking for to go above and around Congress to send 500,000 American soldiers into combat in Vietnam. Now, this may be boring, but what has happened since Nixon I think after Nixon, Jimmy Carter. Ford, oh yeah, that's right. He was just in for a second. And then Jimmy Carter. And if you notice with Jimmy Carter, it was Iran. Follow me, please. See, what America does not know is that foreign policy of America has always dealt very wickedly when it came to oil. And in Iran, Mohammed Mossadegh had nationalized the oil industry. The CIA overthrew him and put the Shah of Iran in power, and America used the Shah as their policeman in that area of the world. At that time, Khomeini was in Iraq, then Khomeini went to France, and from France he organized the revolution, and when the Shah was overthrown and Khomeini came home, he had all of that weaponry that America had put there with the Shah, and he began to talk as an Islamic zealot that there is no king in Islam. And that's right, Allah is the king. So he was going to move down that Gulf. And if he had moved and took over the Gulf and Saudi, Iran would have controlled all the energy power of the Western world. So America could not abide that. So 20 years ago, 2000, this is 2000 coming up to 2003, 1983, the war was already on, and it was going bad between Iraq and Iran. The Iranians were sending waves of soldiers to die, and the war wasn't going good. So guess who they sent? A special envoy from President Reagan. It was Mr. Rumsfeld. You didn't hear me. I'm going to tell it all tonight. May God give me strength. You have to know about your country. You have to know about your government. You have to know how you're being used and manipulated. And if the American people are awakened, they will rise up and take their government back from that small clique that is running America. Mr. Rumsfeld, who is now the Secretary of Defense, then he was Reagan's special envoy to Baghdad. What did he go to Baghdad for? You angry with me because I went to Baghdad. But you send your people to Baghdad. But I'm supposed to be your slave. I'm a plantation boy. So I'm not supposed to leave the plantation without white folks' permission. I'm not your slave. I'm a free black man, and I go where I please in this world. Rumsfeld offered Baghdad help in the war. Why? Because America did not want Iran to succeed with the Iranian Revolution. So since Saddam Hussein is a member of the Ba'athist Party, which is more socialist than Muslim, although he's a Sunni Muslim, he's socialist in his ideas. So America then aided him in the war against Iran. How did you aid him, America? It came out in Congress last week during the debate. Senator Byrd was arguing. It came out in a magazine, I think it was Newsweek magazine. that America gave Iraq weapons, intelligence, and fed Iraq some of the germs that developed into his program. Because at that time, America wanted Iraq to stop Iran so that the Gulf and Saudi would be free to keep on giving oil to the West. Prince Bandar, the United States ambassador from Saudi Arabia, told me personally that they gave $80 billion to Saddam Hussein. And Saddam Hussein spent that money developing his army, developing his weapons. And America looked the other way. If gas was used, America looked the other way. Whatever it was, as long as Saddam and Iraq was doing what America thought was right to do, he could do no wrong. But America is the type of nation that you can't be clear on your friendship, because Noriega was a friend at one time. Diem in Vietnam was a friend at one time, but when he got in the way, they assassinated him. I was in Zaire with Mobutu, and Mobutu was grieving because he did everything he could to obey America, and America, when they got finished using him, they kicked him to the curb. And that is why Harry Belafonte said last night on CNN, when you're in the master's house, the master wants you to do what the master wants done. I know that Colin Powell is the only sane voice in that administration. But what he should do is quit. Walk out. Tell him I had enough. I can't go along with this sick policy. At every turn, they're undermining him. But they said he won the day because he got them to take the case before Congress and before the United Nations. A plus for Colin Powell. But what he should do, if he does not agree with the policy, and they're going to force it, then maybe he would be better to be honest with himself and step down. But I know it would be dangerous. I'll leave it at that. So America made Saddam powerful, strong, and after the war with Iran, Iran was weakened, so was Iraq, but Iraq still had more power than any Arab nation and was considered a potential threat to Israel. Now, the cornerstone of America's foreign policy is Israel. And Israel and the United States are locked together. I don't have time to go into all the details of that marriage. But suffice it to say that since 9/11, President Bush's war on terrorism has served the purpose of Prime Minister Sharon. Because now Sharon can say that the Palestinians who are suffering tremendous suffering in their own land are not freedom fighters. They're not fighting an army of occupation. They're now terrorists. And so Sharon has conveniently used Bush's war on terror that is legitimate from 9/11 as a cover to destroy the Palestinian leadership and the Palestinian Authority. And they do not want, Sharon does not want to live side by side in two states with the Palestinians. No. So the Bible teaches you that when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, that's a sign of the end. The end of what? The end of this system of things. Now let's move quickly to where I wanted to go. When George Herbert Walker Bush, Bush Jr.'s daddy, was in power, I recognized then that the war overseas also has a relationship to your struggle and mine in America. And as a Muslim leader in Libya was the focus of Reagan when he became president, I realized after a while that the reason my father didn't say what name president, he just used the office, that thought would continue until it comes to completion, and it comes to completion with George W. Bush. Now I want you to follow me, because I'm going to say some things tonight that God has shown me. You can take it or let it alone. But before you can call me a liar, you'll see it in your face. When George Herbert Walker Bush was in office, it was crystal clear to me that there was a war planned against the rise of black youth in America. When I saw the tanks in Tiananmen Square in China, Chinese rolling over their own, I knew that this was being planned against you here in America. They were glorifying the gun and the gangs. And they started using movies to prepare the minds of the American people to accept your slaughter. Listen to me, brothers and sisters. Don't you ever think that this nation loves you and will not stoop to any means or method to get rid of you if you become a thorn in their side. Now watch what I'm about to say. Let me say this. I saw them preparing you for slaughter. And it began to crystallize what Elijah Muhammad had said to me, that there was a war planned over there, but it has its effect over here. And in 1985, when Brother Farrakhan spoke in Los Angeles, then came to this coast and spoke in Madison Square Garden, they recognized then that they had to deal with you. So the crack cocaine was developed. No, you got to listen. And it started on the West Coast. Now, when the Berlin Wall fell, they took the CIA operatives from Eastern Germany and brought them to America and placed them among the gangs. Working with gangs. What are you working with gangs for? You want to incite young black men to destroy each other. Listen. So the movie comes out to aid this process. Colors. Boys in the Hood. Menace to society. Showing you as a savage, brute beast. These movies go all over the world. And the world wasn't having no sympathy for you. And out of Japan came the word that it's the blacks in America that are the degenerative force inside the country. So here now you're being set up. You're being set up for slaughter. So your own parents see the gang warfare killing their sons and their daughters, and they cry out to the government. Send the National Guard. Your own parents, wanting to stop the violence, asked for the armed force to come in, and when they came in, it wouldn't be a happy day. Not for us. So Farrakhan, seeing this, Farrakhan knowing this from my experience on that wheel, we set up a Stop the Killing tour. And I went all over this country telling you all, stop the killing, trying to warn you of what was in the scripture about their plans against you. It's all written in the Bible. It's in the Quran. The children of Israel were multiplying. And Pharaoh said, come, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, join on to an enemy and come against us. So what was your plan, Pharaoh? Kill all the boy babies and spare the female, because the female is like the booty to catch the prize. But look at you today. Black women filling the colleges, black men filling the jails, black women in business, working downtown, crosstown. Black man can't find a job. So those of you who don't want to sell drugs and deal with crime, join the army and be all that you can never be. So you're in the armed services now, ready to die. Farrakhan, you're very unpatriotic. When the history is written, it will say that Farrakhan was a true patriot, because a real patriot is not going to bow down when he sees the government going off. That's why freedom of speech is so important. The right of dissent is so important. And you must do it responsibly, but it must be done. Now, after the Stop the Killing tour, I had a Nigerian professor who befriended me, and I said, brother, I'm going to go into the cities and talk to black men. He said, brother Farrakhan, don't do that, because they'll think you're trying to raise an army against them, and that will hasten their desire to kill you. I listened, but my heart was made up, my mind was made up. I had to tell black men that we got to stop this madness. So it started right here in New York. As I spoke at the Jacob Javits Center, I asked the men that attended, would you come out if I came back and spoke to men? You said yes. I came to the 369th Armory, and you all packed that armory with 12,000 black men. And it was at that place that I said, let's take 1 million black men to Washington, D.C. And when you came to Washington, they had expected that there would be trouble.
Come on.
So the House of Representatives closed, the Senate closed, Supreme Court closed, the president got out of town. But the army didn't go, and tanks were there ready. But God was present. His Spirit was with us, and joy and love and peace showed black men that we could live together in a civilized manner. And I saw famous movie stars fall in the floor crying over what we experienced at the Million Man March. But ever since the Million Man March, I became an even greater target. Because Al Wellington did a study, he and Ken Bridges, who was shot to death as the 8th person from the sniper. A good brother, a brother that worked hard for black people, shut down. But at that Million Man March, they took a survey. 85% of those who were present said that they were Christians. 12% were Muslim, and the other were other. So when those statistics came out, the white Christian right said, never again should a Muslim call for something and Christians respond. So from 1985, 95, pardon me, there's been an increased attack on Islam. Many black evangelists began to condemn Islam, following their white counterparts. But the whites were smart. They put the black ones out because they wanted us to react violently, so that they could break Christian-Muslim unity. Fred Price, one of the great evangelists among our Christian brothers, took 6 months attacking Islam from the Prophet, the Quran. At least he read the Quran and the Sunnah of the Hadith. And then he attacked Malcolm and Elijah Muhammad and myself. I never responded. I just wrote him a note and thanked him for creating the dialogue, because he was reading the Quran, he was reading the Hadith, and that would inspire other Christians to read the Quran, read the Hadith, so we would not respond. Then somebody from inside the nation wrote a book. I can't remember the title. Inside the Nation of Islam. Thank you, brother. And he was supposed to do a big thing, and Carl Evans wrote something on Elijah Muhammad. Oh, they were dogging Elijah, dogging the nation, huh? Yes. Dogging Farrakhan. Yes. Well, what was the intent? You got to demonize a man before you kill him, especially when the people find some hope in him. They didn't want to see a revolution. They would rather some of you in your ignorance kill me so they could say it was an in-house thing. Even if you disagree with me, don't do that. No, that would be very foolish. Don't do that. Let them do the dirty work, not you. I think we've had enough of killing each other to please our enemy. We need to stop that all the way around. Now comes 9/11. I'm almost there. Notice how the country was the day before, September 10th. country divided. People claiming that the presidency was stolen. And some were calling the Chief Justice the Thief Justice. Many Democrats were upset because Gore had won the popular election. And all the chads and whatnot that was carrying on in Florida, the poor man had to wait weeks, a month, and then the Supreme Court did something it had never done. Selected our president. So the country was divided, upset, angry. Then September the 11th took place. Right after that, the country was united. In less than a week, they had the picture of 19 Arabs in the paper. I asked the question, how did you know so much the day after but didn't know anything the day before? Cynthia McKinney raised this question. It said she was unpatriotic and they marshaled their forces against her. But now we learn there were 32 or more intelligence tidbits sent to the intelligence gathering agencies of the government, warning of something like this. I have a document that was sent to me off the internet that 25 years ago they were talking about the use of Boeing airplanes as weapons against tall buildings in the United States. And there should have been in place some contingency in case that happened, since it had been talked about. You're not dealing with foolish people. You're dealing with people who think, people who plan years and generations ahead of us. Now, it was convenient to blame Arabs. It could have been. I don't know. I really don't know. But I looked at who the beneficiaries were. And the beneficiaries was what Eisenhower warned the country against: the military-industrial complex. Right after 9/11, look at the rush now, giving the president the power to make war. Only one person dissented, and that's our sister from the West Coast. And she was called a traitor. But she couldn't sign to give President Bush that kind of power to make war wherever the terrorists are. Look at the word. Whatever nation harbors them. Now, in my humble opinion, Islam was spreading too fast in the United States, particularly among the African American community. The Saudis had sent money here not to train terrorists, but to spread Islam. We never got nothing like that. That's right. Libya did help us, but Saudi did help to help us with the school. They sent $400,000 for the school, which was a blessing. Saudi was a friend, but in 1991 I went there and told them, please, I don't think it's wise for you to allow the U.S. Army to have a base here. And I said, They've always wanted to come this way, and once you let them in, you won't be able to get them out. And the ambassador said, we have it in writing. No, I'm serious. He said, we have it in writing that whenever King Fahd would ask them to go, they would go. I said, yes, the Native Americans have many things in writing, too. And he said, if you don't have the power to enforce what's on that paper is worth nothing. Well, we kind of fell out, you know, a little bit. But I tell him, you know, brother, I love you all, but I'm not a prostitute.
That's right.
I didn't say prostitute. I used the other word. It sounds real nice to me. You can't buy me.
That's right.
Whatever I feel as your brother, I got to tell you. So we kind of fell out a little bit. But it's okay. At least they know that I'm a true brother.
Come on, that's right.
That when you love your brother, you tell your brother the things that maybe your brother may not want to hear. But the Quran tells us, speak straight words, you see? And I was trying to be a good brother, like I'm trying to be tonight. So now Islam is under attack.
Yes, sir.
It's real. But it's going to get worse before it gets better. Now the vision or the experience that I had is completed now, because I wrote to President Bush and told him that I know what's in your mind. And from the day that he took office, he had in his mind to get rid of Saddam Hussein.
Right.
He said in the most deceitful speech ever given by a president, to my knowledge, was the one he delivered last Monday night. It was very deceitful. I'm sorry, I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings, but it was presidential, it was sober, it was fatherly, like fireside chat, you know. It was such a brilliantly crafted speech that it would make a brass monkey want to go to war. But a thinking monkey would have some serious questions. Now I'm going to say something about my spiritual father, Elijah Muhammad. See, Elijah Muhammad, when the mosque, Nation of Islam, started in Detroit, his teacher, Farad Muhammad, would say, have the actual facts on the blackboard before the minister arrives. And so the secretary would put up the actual facts. Now, actual facts meant what is the square mileage of the earth, how much is the land, how much is the water, etc., etc. So we all knew 196,940,000 square miles is the earth. 24,896 miles is circumference. 7,926 miles is the diameter. 57,255,000 is land. 139,685,000 is water. Or we could run it. But the point is, before you can arrive, listen to this. This is where I read it. Before you can arrive at a conclusion, you must start first with actual facts. When you deal with actual facts, the solution will come out of the facts. If you start with an assumption, the assumption should lead you to look for facts. But most of us make an assumption, and then judge people on the basis of what we assume or what I feel. This ain't about feel. This is about what it is. Because you could feel something in the dark and think it's one thing, and when the light turn on, it's something else. I don't know how you taking this, but I mean it in a righteous way. Now, I mean it in a righteous way. Now, listen, I'm almost finished. Here's a speech that the president made. Where are the facts? See? If, maybe, perhaps, if he gets this, he'll be able to do this in 6 months. See? But he states as an actual fact, Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. Fact? No. The CIA sent him information that gives the lie to what he's saying.
All right.
I read, I got it here. But I memorized it.
That's right.
Look, this, the intelligence gathering element of the country sends messages, information, intelligence to the Pentagon. The Pentagon skews it and feeds it to the administration so that it feeds the administration position. So you got confusion and division within the government, because now in the intelligence community they're told, if you can't go along with what the administration is saying, you just keep quiet. Don't you let the people know that we're lying.
That's right.
Come on, miss.
That's right. Listen.
Here's a man that they say got weapons of mass destruction. We got to go there and disarm him.
Come on.
Look at the word, disarm. America and England have been bombing Iraq for the last 12 years. And in Saddam Hussein's letter to the UN that was read by his foreign minister, Saddam Hussein said, we knocked out one plane. But Britain and America said in 12 years they couldn't knock down one craft. Now tell me, if this country is a threat to America and has been bombed for 12 years, has not been able to knock down one American or one British plane,
Make the case.
how then are they a threat to their neighbors? In 1991, a threat. Kuwait doesn't say Iraq is a threat. Saudi doesn't say Iraq is a threat. The Arab Emirates don't say Iraq is a threat. Qatar and Yemen don't say that Iraq is a threat. Oman doesn't say that Iraq is a threat.
Make the case.
Well, then what are you saying, President Bush? You are like the deceivers who lied and confused the Congress to get the Tonkin Gulf resolution passed. Now, you see, when people are grieving, they don't make good decisions.
That's right.
You lose a loved one, and you're in shock and in pain. You don't make good decisions. That's when a true friend steps in and say, baby, I'll handle it. I'll help you. Come on, you know. Here's a country with grief filled with grief. We haven't gotten over 9/11. So the president waits until the anniversary of September the 11th, bring it all back, and then manipulate the grief to go to war, and forces Congress and congressional people who are up for re-election to herd them into the boat for war. But I thank God for the Congressional Black Caucus. Only 3 out of all of them voted for that resolution, but the caucus stood firm, no war. I thank God for Senator Feinhold and Senator Byrd and Senator Kennedy and Senator Kucinich, Representative Kucinich, and all the others who stood with the members of the caucus against war. And when the bill was signed today, the president said, "We speak with one voice." The hell you do. How you going to speak with one voice and didn't get unanimous consent? Now you may say, Farrakhan, you out there now. You in deep trouble. Hell, I've been in trouble. I want to find out who I am. I want to find out if God is real. Because I know God is real. I don't fear nobody but God. Then I got to stand up on that. Stand up on no fear of man, but fear only of God. So I'm going all the way with this. And let God take over. Whatever they want to do to Farrakhan, come on and do it. Because I have a God that will deal with you. You think you have power, but you're going to be acquainted with a real power, and very soon. The God that I serve, he won't knock down 2 towers. The God that I serve have 49 of your states under drought, and you have no power to make it rain. The God that I serve send plagues of grasshoppers and locusts on you. African bees. He turned the weather against you. Rain on your parade. Then send torrents of snow down on you. Then send the wind and the tornadoes and the hurricanes. But you have seen nothing yet. Wait till he used one earthquake to knock down a whole city. I'm pleading to the American people. The Bible says of Pharaoh, he said, "Me and my people are wicked." Come on. But a few of them got out because they listened to Moses. When I saw the vote in the Congress, I said, this Congress is going to bring the wrath of God down on America. And everybody that voted for it has their part in it. Oh, the American people, you have to stand up now. So that the chastisement of God will not overtake you when America does what she's bound to do. President Bush says war is not inevitable. He's lying. He's already made up his mind. I'm sorry to say this for my Iraqi brothers and sisters. He has made up his mind. No matter what the UN does, he's going to war. Mark my words. He's pacifying you with these soft words. War is not inevitable. Oh boy, we're for peace. We want peace. And the Bible said they shall seek peace, but they shall not find it. I carry my little Quran with me everywhere I go because my father told me, he said, when you get in trouble, he didn't say if. He said, when you get in trouble, he says, you take your Quran and you nurse it like a baby nurses a baby bottle. So every time I get a chance, I say, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, and I open and I start reading. And you know what, brothers and sisters, see this book, Quran and Bible? Well, mainly the Quran. Everything in it was written or revealed in a context. After 9/11, it gives great context to many, many, many ayats of the Quran. So if you understand what is happening, you go look, there's guidance.
That's right. That's right.
And you can get through.
Yes.
Now, brothers and sisters, I'm telling you, within the next 3 months, I believe, we'll be at war. I feel sorry for the soldiers, the sailors, the Marines, black men, black women, brown women, white men, white women who love this nation. And they're made to believe that they are under a threat. Senator Byrd asked the question, Mr. President, you have not answered me. He said, how much money is it going to cost? Where's the money coming from? When Gore and Bush were debating during the presidential campaign, they were talking about a trillion or more dollars. That was a surplus.
That's right.
Now all of that is gone. Country in nearly $6 trillion of debt. And I have a document from the Federal Reserve that says no way America can climb out of debt. There's no way. No way. No way. The country is spiraling downward. And they're trying to make it appear everything is all right. It can print money. I thought I had some. I left it somewhere. But if you look at these dollars, it don't cost hardly nothing to print it. $1,000 bill don't cost hardly nothing to print it. And they don't have enough money in circulation. If we got it all back, America still couldn't pay her debt. Because there's not enough of it in circulation. And it's not backed by nothing substantive. So you're looking at hard times now coming. Real hard times. All of this is written. Now I'm ready to conclude. The president will go to war. He said Saddam gassed his own people. Guess what I saw from the internet? An Associated Press writer. Look at what he said. the United States held open-air biological and chemical weapons tests in at least 4 states, Alaska, Hawaii, Maryland, and Florida, during the 1960s in an effort to develop defenses against such weapons, according to Pentagon documents. Now, he gassed his own people. He's a terrible fella. I'll turn the page. It's juicy. The Defense Department has identified nearly 3,000 soldiers involved in tests disclosed earlier. What kind of tests? It says the Cold War era experiments of Project Shad. We heard that name before, but it was called Chads, right? Which we are now learning use live toxins and chemical poisons on American servicemen on American soil, and this must be aggressively investigated in as open and transparent a manner as possible, said the House Veterans Affairs Committee Chairman, Representative Chris Smith, Republican of New Jersey. He said our focus must be on quickly identifying those veterans who were involved, assessing whether they suffered any negative health consequences, and if warranted, providing them with adequate health care and compensation for their service. Now, if 3,000, now these are thousands that were poisoned, thousands of American servicemen, and it says only half of them have been notified.
Listen.
And this is from Pentagon documents. Okay. 40 years ago, it just came out, the American generals wanted a war with Cuba so bad they could taste it. And they came up with a plan to shoot down a plane and get a boatload of Cubans and blow it up and blame it on Fidel to anger the American people and so that they could rile them up. 40 years later, they know that if they had attacked Cuba, Cuba had nuclear weapons already there facing American cities. They didn't know this. If President Kennedy listened to his generals, many American cities would have been nuked. Now look at the reverse. 40 years later, the generals are telling the president, don't do this. And here are people that ain't never seen war, been running and ducking from war, now committing your children to war. I think we have a problem, and it is serious. In closing, what is the consequence of this war? I told President Bush in a letter, I said, you're going to run into something that you and your planners had not figured on. I read something in the Quran the other day that all planning is Allah. So they plan and they think it is they who are planning. But it is Allah who is planning it all. And the sad thing about it is, see, our planners are blinded in the arrogance of their power. Like Senator Fulbright wrote a book on the arrogance of power. When you're arrogant, you don't see little things. You stumble and fall. President Bush and those around him. Now you have to look deep because there's a heavy pro-Israeli lobby. Richard Pearl, Paul Wolfowitz. They say a wolf in the White House. I read something. See, these people are more loyal to Israel than they are to the United States of America, because Iraq cannot threaten America, but Iraq will always be a potential threat for Israel. Do you know what Iraq is? Iraq is to the Arab world what Germany is to Europe. What is Germany to Europe? They're the most disciplined. They're the most scientific and technologically prepared of all the Europeans. So it is with Iraq. Iraq is the most disciplined, scientific, and technologically developed country of the Arab world. So today, look at what they want in their new UN resolution. They want the scientists of Iraq to come out so that they can be questioned. Lies! They want to take those scientists here to America and use their science and rob the Arab world of any scientist that could develop any weapon to bring detente to that region, because Israel already has so many weapons of mass destruction, and she's not afraid to use them if she would use helicopter gunships, tanks, and rockets on unarmed people. Then you know she'll drop a bomb if she's forced in that direction. Saddam Hussein is no threat, but potentially he is that. No Arab nation should have weapons of mass destruction to challenge Israel. That's the whole idea. Make an example of Saddam. Now they're going to go in and look at what they're saying. Senator Byrd said, well, what are you going to do when you get there? No answer. Now the answer's coming out. We're going to set up a military government, and we're going to occupy Iran like we did Japan. We're going to occupy Iraq like they occupied Japan. That means years now, they're going to control all the oil that's coming up out of Iraq. 112 billion barrels, the second largest oil reserve in the world, will be in America's hands. And right now they are bargaining with China, with France, and with Russia. You go along with us, and when we take the oil, we'll give you so much and you so much. But I warn you, China, I warn you in the name of Allah. I warn you, France and Russia, in the name of Allah. The Quran says the devil promises only to deceive. When he has it, I guarantee you, he will not give it to you, Russia, because he fears that you will rise again. Don't go for the hype, China. So the consequences of war is all the nations are going to be afraid of the United States of America, who is justifying a preemptive strike. A preemptive strike. She's the aggressor, but she's making herself look like she's being attacked. See, we as black people, we understand this. When the police want to beat the hell out of us, they make it seem like we did something. Then they come in and put a gun in our hand or somewhere in our pocket and say that we had the weapon, when all the time they had the extra weapon, but they had to justify what they were doing to us. It's the same demonic mind that is at work, America. What are the consequences? No nation will feel safe. And therefore, as it's written in the Bible, wake up the mighty men of war. I will gather all nations down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and there will I plead with them for my people, whom they have sold. Oh, man. So the nations are now have got to seek weapons because they don't know when America is coming next. It's Iraq today, Iran tomorrow, Libya the day after, Syria. But they really want a regime change in China, and they want one in North Korea, and they want one in Russia if Russia don't go along. See? Oh yes, brother, Zimbabwe too. And in closing, I want to say something about Zimbabwe. Thank you, brother. Because Zimbabwe is going to be a test case. And I do believe after America deals with Iraq, she's going to find the excuse to send a military force into Zimbabwe, because she already has condemned the election as not credible. She already is propping up the opposition. So all that's needed now is to scare all Africa with what she's about to do with Iraq, and then send a force in to get rid of our brother so that the white farmers can come back and take the land. They have to make an example of Mugabe, because now Namibia is saying we want to get back our land, and South Africa wants to get back their land. And when this thing starts, it's going to produce race war. Did you hear me? And all your comfortable relationships in America are going to be disturbed. And those of you that live in Europe, your relationships are going to be disturbed, because when race war begins, those that are hurt and harmed in such a war, should it take place, and I believe that it will, because the blacks are saying we want our land, we're not going to kick you totally out, we'll share it with you, but you can't have it all. Right. And the whites are saying it belongs to us. They don't want to give them nothing back. So that means war, doesn't it? All right. So what effect will happen if the blacks in South Africa and in Namibia and in Southern Africa begin to take back their land from the whites and war takes place? What effect will that have in the European capitals? Look at how they treat Mugabe now in Europe. He was a darling just a few days ago, but now he's a demon. Come on. So if the blacks start fighting for their land, then all bets are off in Europe. You that live in England, you in trouble. You that live in France, in Belgium, in Italy, in Germany, in Norway, in Sweden, in Denmark, in Russia, where you think you got it made. Hell no. The Bible says every man in that day will go to his own and find refuge under his own vine and fig tree. And when the war starts, it's going to catch all of us. And inside America, I'm telling you what's coming. You can take it or leave it, but you will never get away from what I'm saying. You're going to run into it. Whether I'm living or dead, you will run into this. The Bible said Babylon is fallen, is fallen. She has become a habitation of devils and a hole of every foul spirit, and a cage for every unclean and hateful bird. You know, when it gets cold, what do the birds do? They fly where it's warm. As this war heats up, you see what happened in Bali? See, this thing is going to keep going. And Americans are going to see, well, maybe I better get out of Bali. I'll go to Bally's in Vegas. but I'm not going to Bali, Indonesia. And as they start being driven out from this place and that place, when they come back home, they see you. Then the hatred in them will cause attacks to rise against you. It's written, it's going to happen. And the only way we can get through this, my dear family, we're going to have to unite. To the Muslims in this audience, if the body bags start coming back from Iraq, and they're black and they're white and they're Hispanic and they're killed by Muslims, how do you think you'll go to prayer in ease? Now, what they want to do is break up Christian, black Muslim unity. That's what they're after. And it's up to you. You know we've lived among you for 72 years. I'm talking about the Nation of Islam. And you wouldn't be where you are if it were not for the Muslims and what was taught to black America by Muslims, starting with Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, Warithuddin Muhammad, Louis Farrakhan, Jeremiah Shabazz. You keep going. You all got something from us. And we never lynched you. We never were terrorizing you. You wouldn't even be preaching a black theology if it was not for Elijah Muhammad. So I say to Jerry Falwell, who used the most vicious language in the English lexicon to call the prophet who brought Islam and this Quran to the world as a terrorist. Reverend Falwell, you should be ashamed of yourself, but I know you're not. You apologized, but that was tongue-in-cheek. You really spoke your sentiment. But let me remind you, Reverend Falwell, Reverend Franklin Graham, Pat Robertson, if the God of Christianity that you say is your God is the God of love, where was that love when your fathers brought our fathers into slavery? Where is that love? When your people were dressed up in white sheets, carrying and burning crosses, it wasn't Prophet Muhammad and Muslims terrorizing black people. It was so-called white Christians. How dare you say you represent a God of love? This is why the Native Americans don't want to recognize Columbus Day. And the Pope of Rome had to ask forgiveness for what so-called Christians have done to the indigenous people of the earth. We have never known no love from you. How many black people you have in your congregation? Why is there a Second Baptist church? Because you didn't want us in First Baptist. Why is there an African Methodist Episcopalian church? It's because you didn't want us in your Methodist church. Don't talk that stuff around us. We know you. We've been sleeping in your bed and under your bed for 450 years. We know you better than anybody on the planet. So I advise you to stop it. Stop it. You got too much blood on your hands. And those that live in tissue paper houses should not even entertain picking up a pebble. So black Christians and black Muslims have a lot to embrace each other over. And don't you let these false Christians bring you into hostility with the members of your own family. When I became a Muslim, my mother was a Christian. My uncle's Christian. My cousins are Christians. How could I hate Christians? But I went back and taught my mother, and she became a Muslim. And a few weeks ago, I went back to my church in Boston, Episcopalian church. They had a homecoming and they wanted Farrakhan to come home. And I went back home and I sat there and I wept, remembering my mom and remembering those who used to tie my collar and my vestments on as I sang in the choir. I can never forget the church. The church is my home. So I always go back to the church because as a Muslim, I know Jesus today. I know him better today. So I feel at home at church. And I hope one day to preach so skillfully and well that you won't be able to tell the difference between a Muslim or a Christian. We all will be living a righteous life based on righteous principles. So my friends, so my brothers and sisters, be careful of homeland security. They're coming to get Farrakhan soon. Listen, just listen. Don't get upset. Just listen. Please. Don't get upset. I'm not trying to upset you. I just remind you of something in the scripture. See, I believe that Jesus was a great revolutionary. He's not this milquetoast fella that some of you all try to make him out to be. And if you read the New Testament, Jesus shows you the path that every revolutionary must trod. Caesar didn't like Jesus. This modern Caesar don't like me. He don't like Viola Plummer. He don't like Kwame Ture. He don't like Dr. Ben. He don't like none of us who stand. He never has. He never will. There ain't no use in trying to curry no favor with them. Try to curry favor with God. Listen now. He's coming for me. That's what my father was trying to tell me on the wheel 17 years ago. You got one more thing to do. Now I know what the one more thing is. I got to go through the fire and pass through the portals of death and win. Listen. See, he gradually brought me to this point so I could come into the understanding of what I gotta face and not fear it. He's coming. Notice how he's working on Jesse, on Reverend Al Sharpton. Did you see the movie Barbershop? I saw it. I heard so much about it, I had to go see it. And I would like to say to my brother Ice Cube and to Cedric the Entertainer, I know that you are conscious brothers. And I love you both very, very much. And I'm proud that you were able to write a movie that was so successful at the box office. But box office is not all that there is. You see, something was wrong, my dear brother Cube, with the film. I think you had a wonderful idea, and the core of that movie revolved around Cedric the Entertainer talking to Cube outside the barbershop after Cube had sold what his father worked so hard and sacrificed so much to give him. And Cedric said to Cube, "You young people, you don't respect nothing." He said, "Your father worked 40 years to give you this shop." And Cube said, "Yeah, but he handed me a lot of debt." And Cedric said, "Yeah, but your father, see, he gave a lot of people free haircuts. He did more than that. He gave people jobs. He helped people all along the way. That was your father. And now you've thrown it all away. This barbershop, this is like our country club. This is where we talk. We say what we feel. This is where we're free to say whatever. And you threw that away." That's the core of the movie. An elder saying to a young man, respect the sacrifice of your father. And then the movie turns around and disrespects the sacrifice of Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, Jesse Jackson, and even the beating that Rodney King took that awakened a people to struggle. And when O.J. Simpson won the case in the court just before the Million Man March, see, that victory set a tone. So no matter what you think, these are events, the sum of which makes you who you are today. And then to dismiss reparations as though it had no value. See, these are political statements couched in a movie. See, and when Cedric said to a man that come in to sell a satellite that he had stolen, he said, "Sit down. I want to teach you something." Sit down. "What do you want to teach him, Cedric?" "You see, you got to hear this now. Rosa Parks ain't did nothing." See? Now, Cedric and Q and I and you will pass away. 10 years from now, that movie still lives. 20 years from now, that movie still lives. And when it is played to a generation that don't know nothing about the sacrifices that their elders made, that they could be who and what they are today, 20 years from now, if we're alive and the powers that be are still in power, they will say, "Well, if you're just gonna have a day to get your freak on, why are we celebrating a man that his own people call that ugly name?" And just as they reverse everything else, they'll take the holiday away, strip his name down off of all these boulevards, because they ain't never wanted white people to honor any black man anyway. So my brother Cedric and my brother Cube, I want you to think about it. Money isn't everything. You know, always look as far as you can see as to what your action today will do today and tomorrow. And that's why I maintain that our rap artists are the greatest potential leaders that we have, because 2-year-olds that are just learning to talk can quote a rapper from front to back. And the teacher in school can't get them to sing the ABC. But you start that rhythm on, Dr. Dre, and before you know it, Puff, they're right in it. And so all I'm saying to our rappers, you got the whole world in your hands. But, when God put the world in your hand, you got to say, now what is my responsibility, God? Come on. What is my responsibility? See? Now look, the same way you say ho and the B word and MF this and, you know, the kind of thing that seems to be popular, that they will popularize because it makes money. But remember, when Michael Jackson said, "Do me, do me, like me, kike me," he had to go back in the studio. They put all that stuff off the shelf because of their respect for themselves. And they're not going to let you use your power to hurt them. Guess what? They didn't publicize this. Michael Jordan been wearing a black band on his arm. You didn't hear this, did you? I'll tell you why in a minute. This black band on his arm, the reporter said, "Michael, why are you wearing that black armband?" He said, "Well, for a lot of reasons, but I really don't want to talk about it." And they pressed him. And he said, "This armband, I'm wearing it because of the suffering of the Palestinian people." Listen, 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 listen. He said, "I'm wearing this armband because Nike is using labor, cheap labor, and selling tennis shoes to my people for $150 or more that they literally paid nothing to have made." He said, "I'm wearing this armband." They said, "But you made money." He said, "Yes, but I'm going to take this money and I'm going to give it to those who are struggling." The next day, the ADL called him an anti-Semite and threatened him. Nobody that has any sympathy for the Palestinians will make it in America. And the reason they didn't publish that is because of our love for Michael.
Right.
And now that Michael is politically conscious and everybody want to be like Mike, and let's crush Mike. When Michael Jackson, you know, was on fire. Woo! And had people all over the world screaming. And then he went to Africa. He went to Africa and wanted to invest in Africa and help Mandela. After that, they started killing his record sales all over the world. So when they make you famous, be careful. Because if you try to use your fame to become political, then they start yanking the support out from under you. So I say, be wise as the serpent, humble as the dove. Make the money, but don't sell out. Make the money, but if they tell you to say something like that on Rosa Parks, let a fool in the barber shop say that, but the wise old man say, just a minute, young man. See, young man, you don't understand nothing. And that's why you's a fool. And then teach the fool. That's what goes on in barbershops. And then when he said, nah, I wouldn't say this in front of white people. Well, who are you saying it to? See, you make yourself look like a modern 21st century step and fetch it. And I think we ought to be dignified enough to stop it. Don't you? So, my family, let us unite. To the American people, wake up. Wake up. Your country has already been taken from you. Let's unite and take it back. It's yours, but it's mine. It's ours. Let's take it back. Let it be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And let us be the people. Thank you for listening, and may God bless you. Happy Day of Atonement. Happy day. Remembering the Million Man March. Long live the spirit of the Million Man March. Salam alaikum. Brothers and sisters, is Brother Yusuf Ben Yochanan here? Could you hold for just 1 minute, please? The elder statesman, the greatest living black historian, one of our great scholars, Dr. Yusuf Ben Yochanan. He wanted to say something to all of us, and I would like us to be respectful of our elder and hear what brother has to say. Dr. Ben? This is really today the father of black historical consciousness. This man, more than any, has written the most scholarly works on the history of our struggle. We ought to make his life as comfortable and peaceful, and let him know how much we thank God for the womb that bore him and for the loins out of which this great man came. He wanted to say a word to us, so let us listen.
I regret that my speech isn't as it used to be, but I'm a man that lives in a library instead of an apartment. I have about 35,000 books. I have a few hundred books, engineering books. I don't have mother and father. My people, my father's people, was born in Ethiopia, and they had run out. My mother's people are born in Puerto Rico and don't give a hoot about me. I have looked for a place to put my books, a black place. I've looked in Georgia. Everywhere there were black people supposedly owning universities and colleges. I haven't found none. I looked in the United States. I haven't found any. But I looked and I listened a few days. From the time I went, not that I hadn't heard, but from the time 3 or 4 weeks ago, I went to 135th Street, 125th Street and 5th Avenue.
The Black Theater.
I have been invited many times by Brother Farrakhan to come to Chicago to Father's Day, and I've turned it down. I always wear a hat out of respect. Tonight, I refuse to wear the hat. And I'm going to say this. I'm meeting with my children, and I'm going to tell them the mosque, 127th Street, can come to the house, send a representative, and so forth. I will give you, any time you come there, my engineering books that I went to college. That's how I started out. And I generally go to Al Sharpton Place. But I'm giving you, now you can take these, my engineering books now. And I'm saying, when I passed away, because I'm going to die, I'm 83 years old, all the other books, and they are works that the big college, the black college in Georgia, and many don't have. I have books that goes back to the 16th century, and they belong to you and the nation of black people. You see, I was born in Ethiopia, of an African father of Ethiopia, and a Puerto Rican mother of Carolina in Puerto Rico. Carolina was 100% racist town, and Louisa. And I went back to Puerto Rico many times. I grew up there in the Virgin Islands and everything, where I wasn't wanted, and now I don't want. I know what happened in the island of Puerto Rico when they refused to do certain things. And I am living to the point where I'm seeing it's not going to change, and I'm going to turn this over to you, because none of the people in colleges or museums will be men and speak as you spoke today. So I'm not taking more time, because it's not necessary. But you send your lawyers to my home to make sure that I sign the books that I'm leaving. And all those books that I used to write my books are yours. Thank you.
Brothers and sisters, I hope all of us appreciate what we just heard. And I pray to Allah that we will guard this treasure with our lives, because one of the first things the enemy always does when he conquers is either to destroy your libraries or to take the wisdom of your libraries away from you. And I can promise Dr. Ben Yochanan that whatever he gives to us, it is for all of you. When I say all of you, meaning that you will be able to come and read, but you can't take. Thank you, Dr. Ben. I want to thank my dear brother, Russell Simmons, the great impresario who is here, and his lovely wife, Kimora, and the beautiful children that I hope, the new one that I hope to see. And guess who's standing by his side? The one and only Puff Daddy or Diddy. P. Diddy. Thank you so very much. And down on the front row is my queen of song. What is her name? That's Stephanie Mills. And guess what? I was sentenced to a life of hard labor by the judge himself, Judge Mathis. Come on out here, Judge. Where's Dougie Fresh? Dougie Fresh, the great Dougie Fresh and his beautiful family. Raise your hand, family. Yes. Now, my brother, is this? This is Brother Ahmed Shahati from Libya. Brother Shahati, it's a joy to see you. Thank you. Thank you. Eric B. Where's Eric B? There he is. Where's Africa Bambada? Where's my brother? There he is. Dr. Leonard Jeffries, our great professor. And my friend, oh, Lloyd Thomas, the great calypso singer that taught me how to sing calypso. Lloyd Thomas. Africa, that's my utopia, the real Garden of Eden. Africa, heaven on earth, she gave creation birth. Bam, bing, ding, boom, boom. He's a great composer, my friend, and of course, Dr. Yang and Reverend Jenkins of the Federation. We are honored to have you here. All the pastors that are here, all in the clergy, would you raise your hand? Members of the clergy. Any members of the clergy? Where's Bob Law? Big Bob Law. There's the giant. Michael Saunders. Where's Michael? From Hot 105.1. What is it called? Oh, I thought you said hot. Kevin Lyles. Where's Kevin? Def Jam. Thank you, brothers. Thank you all for making this a beautiful night all over America. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now let us close with prayer. I would like to ask Minister Benjamin, since you helped me with the Million Man March along with so many others, and before he closes with prayer, I want to announce that Sonny Carson, our great warrior brother, is still in a coma, and let us lift him up in prayer and pray that God will deliver our brother back to us, because there's so much work in this hour for us to do. So I hope that you remember the pledge that we said at the Million Man March. And let's stay together as a family. Muslims, Christians, Hebrew Israelites, nationalists. All of us are family. And we should never let anything or anyone break up our family. This is the way we'll get through this dark hour with the blessing of God. Thank you so much. Minister Benjamin, would you dismiss us in prayer? Thank you very much. Beautiful speech.
Let us pray. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praises be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Merciful, Master of the day of requital. Thee do we serve, and thee alone do we beseech for thine help. Guide us on the right path, the path upon whom thou hast bestowed favors, not upon those where thy wrath is brought down, nor those that go astray. O Allah, we give thanks for the message that we've heard tonight from God. We give thanks for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We give thanks for the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. O Allah, we give thanks for all of our Muslim brothers and sisters, all of our Christian brothers and sisters, and all of those who are here from all walks of life, from all faiths. Bless the pastor of this church and the community in which we serve. Help us to long remember the Million Man March, and may we keep the spirit of the Million Man March alive in all that we do and all that we say, which is the Spirit of God. And all the people of God said together, Amen.